Why do we argue about stuff in the Bible when we really don't know what we're doing? How many times have you been in a Shabbat midrash debating back and forth about some minuscule little discrepancy in the word, only to find out years later that the discrepancy was not a discrepancy at all, but a misunderstanding, and that all of your brilliant arguments were for nothing because you were wrong in the first place? It's a humbling experience, and one that shows that we need to be open to new understanding, like we're going to talk about tonight in a story about Yeshua right before Passover. Why are we doing this? Because it's the end of the sixth day, the sun is set, and this is Shabbat Night Live!
It's Shabbat Night Live from Charlotte, North Carolina, with your host, Michael Rood. Join Michael's guest hosts, Scott Laird and Matthew Hall. Now, here he is, the Director of the Chronological Gospels International Relations, Scott Laird.
Hey, Shabbat Shalom, Torah fans. Welcome to the new 1 hour Shabbat Night Live with Michael Rood. Yes, sir, we are in at 8 p.m. Eastern, out at 9, quick like a bunny. It's the Great Commission in high definition. And the definition of this world's greatest co-host is sitting right here. He is a Rood Awakenings ministry coordinator, the leader of Aviv Worship, these guys right here, and the messianic minstrel behind MatthewHallMusic.com. Please welcome Matthew Hall.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. Thank you.
Can you believe it? We're like Passover's next week.
I know.
Isn't that crazy?
And you keep saying this is the new 1 hour, but I think eventually you're going to have to.
Well,
you know, the more we get into it, we're going to have to be the old 1 hour
New's
show.
getting old, right?
Yeah.
Well, okay. This is the last time we'll say new. From now on, you should know there's going to be a 1 hour show. There we go. It's official now.
Okay, all right. There you go.
Okay, so Passover. Who's going to be there? We know that Michael's going to be there.
Yeah, I'm going to be there.
You're going to be there. You're going to be leading worship.
Yep.
Who's going to be on your worship team?
Right now, we've got Paul Franklin playing the drums from Follower Band, and his brother Sluggo is going to be ripping up the lead guitar.
Nice.
My wife, hopefully Jenny Vanderels, and Angie Clark, who also works for Rood Awakening. She's going to be playing the flute.
Oh, she's the one playing the flute.
Yep.
Right. Okay,
Yep.
yes.
We're still looking for a keyboard player and a bass player. So I think we're getting closer to nailing that down. So we're getting down to the wire.
Good. Well, yeah,
But, yeah.
getting pretty close here, 1 week away. So
Yep.
yeah, we're making all the preparations. I see the crew is, we've got all the scaffolding and all that kind of stuff. We're getting that all collected because we have a big trailer we're going to take down the road, and it's literally just down the road from here. So if
it's actually towards my house, which is great.
Oh yeah.
So I didn't even put it in order for that. So yeah, it's on my way home.
Yeah, it's a good thing. So if people have ever been to the Rood Awakening studios and thought, well, that wasn't such a bad drive, it's pretty much right next door if you're coming from a far distance, really.
Right.
So anyway, this is your last chance to register for Passover. As we mentioned, it is coming next weekend. Worthy is the Lamb, April 3rd to 5th at the Embassy Suites, Charlotte Concord. Like we said, I'll be there. Matthew will be leading worship there. This year's speakers will be Michael Hall, Michael Rood.
And welcome to the new.
Yeah, it's the hybrid Matthew Rood, together with Michael Hall. Anyway. Arthur Bailey will be there. David Jesse will be there. We'll be having a lot of fun for the kids, like making bad jokes like this one. Matzah making, plus the most riveting Passover Seder meal you will ever see. It is really something. I guarantee you will never forget it. You can pick your own seats this year for the Seder. We've never done that before. But don't worry, every seat is a good one. Don't feel like because you're in the back of the room that's going to be a bad seat. No, there's screens on both sides of the stage, and Michael's in the middle, and you'll see and hear everything. We've configured the room differently so that no matter where you're sitting, it is a good seat. And that is something that Michael specifically requested, and I think we have delivered. So seats start at just $99 for adults and $59 for kids. Now, that's not just for the Seder meal. That is for the whole weekend. So get your tickets now. And I mean now. It is next weekend, guys. So we also have something to help you prepare for Passover. It's a 9-week teaching series that we are going to send you by email. Now, we're almost at the tail end of it, but don't worry about it. You're getting one email a week on topics like what is Passover, how do you do it, etc. It's great if you're starting to learn about Passover, or if you're teaching someone else, especially right now, right before Passover comes upon us. You'll have 8 of 9 of those teaching series in your hands. We're almost at the end of the series. But when you sign up, you will get access to all of the previous teachings, so you won't miss anything. All you have to do is visit us online and sign up at aroodawakening.tv/prepare. Now, typically right after Passover, Michael bolts out the door. We know this. Passover's done. Boom, he's off to Israel.
Right.
And the reason for that is
the Israel tour.
The Israel tour. He's getting ready. He goes up there for a couple of weeks before the tour starts.
Right.
And he gets everything lined up, talks to the people, in the
goes into the secret alleys,
the secret areas,
old Jerusalem, and finds his little contacts,
That's
and
right.
says, all right, they're coming.
Yeah, pays off the people to get, no, he doesn't pay off.
Exactly.
No, but, yeah, he does. He needs to go to different people than all the other tours go to in order to get the tour into these special places, because they are special. This isn't the run-of-the-mill stuff. We're not going to take you to the, all the typical Christian stuff.
Yep. Yep. This is the Indiana Jones special.
This is the Indiana Jones special indeed. Now, it's literally 2 weeks after Passover. Michael has said that he is definitely not doing a tour next year. That's right, not doing a tour next year. And he is not sure about years after that. So, if you want to be on what could be Michael Rood's last Israel tour, you better get on it. It's 10 days, April 19th to May 1st. Everything is included in this tour, even the airfare from JFK, all of it for $4,975. Check out all the details online at aroodawakening.tv/Israel2015. Thank you for joining us tonight, whether you are in Israel, the USA, Canada, or points across the globe. You may or may not know that Michael Rood's teachings are now available to you no matter where you live, because we broadcast the true gospel of the kingdom all over the world, most significantly of which Michael Rood's teachings, his most famous teachings, are now on TBN every Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern. We're going to be starting the Chronological Gospel series very soon.
Very exciting.
Very exciting. And aroodawakening.tv is where you can find the rest of the teachings. All of the teachings are free. I mean, you can buy them on DVD if you want, but
Yep. We're really focusing this year especially on becoming more information-based and driven to where people are finding the information they're looking for.
Right.
And then if their lives are changed, they're touched, and they want to partner with the ministry, they're more inclined to become invested in what we're doing.
Right, exactly. And so that's why we have all of the major teachings from last year are online for free. We're talking about the Judges series, From Here to Eternity, the Ark of the Covenant, the Sinai connections up there, Hebrews is up there, the letter to the Messianic Hebrews. And there's more.
From Here to Eternity.
From Here to Eternity, there's more coming online all the time. We're also on INSP if you live in the UK. If you live up in Iceland, say hello to Omega Television. We're on there. If you speak Spanish mostly and you're comfortable with that language, Michael's translated teachings are on Enlace. We're also on YouTube, iTunes, Google TV. Now, we've been showing Michael's most famous teachings on TBN, like we've been saying, and coming soon we'll be broadcasting, as we teased, the Chronological Gospels television series.
Yep.
This is the archaeology-based shows that you have never seen before. They're brand new. And best of all, we shot the show in Israel. Our production folks are putting it together right now, and you will see it very soon. Now, if this sounds familiar, Chronological Gospels TV show, wait a minute, I heard something about that before. You're right, because we've
been talking about it for quite a while.
Right, with the executive producer program.
Yep.
So we've been talking about that for a while, and this new show is exactly what that is intended for. So you can still sign up for that if you want. You can still sign up. You can still sign up to be an executive producer. We need folks to step in and help with the production costs, as a matter of fact, by becoming an executive producer of one episode. That's what you do. You donate $5,000 to become the executive producer, one episode. It is yours. You get your name as the executive producer on the episode, on the credits. That's kind of neat. 10 copies of the Chronological Gospels to pass around. You get an executive producer trophy and a nice tax receipt for the 2015 tax year, not to mention. You can find out all about it at thechronologicalgospels.com. Just look for the executive producer banner on that page. Click on there and you'll see all you need to see. Speaking of the Chronological Gospels, let's go there for our discussion tonight. We are talking about something that happened this week in history, right before Passover, and you will find that week on our astronomically and agriculturally corrected biblical Hebrew calendar. We are now on the first month. Oh, look at this! I have to turn the page. The first month, first week rather, first Shabbat of the month of Nisan, and there's a whole lot of stuff going on this time at this time in the life of the Messiah. This is where things really got into high gear.
Yep.
I mean, you look on this in the chronological Gospels, and there's like a whole big chunk of it is dedicated to this week because there was so much going on. Let's see, Yeshua had just finished making a final tour around the Galilee area during the Adar Bet, which we talked about last week.
Yep.
Which is the
13th month.
The 13th month, which is added again. Why is that added?
It's in conjunction with the Aviv, and when the barley is Aviv, just so that the people could actually bring their first fruit offerings, and that the things were in harvest, and it coincided with the purpose behind the feast. So yeah,
exactly.
It's
you had
cool.
to wait. Yeah, they gave it another month for the barley to mature, so they'd be ready. Yep. Good point. So now, that situation was the year. There was an Adar Bet year that Yeshua was crucified, and that happens about every 3 years still today. I mean, it doesn't stop; it still goes. So this is when Yeshua healed 2 blind men that we're going to be talking about here on the way to Jericho, or was it after Jericho? This is one of those apparent contradictions in the Bible that people focus on to say that the Bible isn't true. Well, we're going to prove that it is, so hang on to your seats. It's event number 157 in the chronological Gospels, page 189. Or you will also find it in a regular Bible, Luke 18, verses 35 to 43. Now, Matthew and Mark also record this event, but they say something different than what Luke says, and thus the confusion and the arguing about it. So Matthew and Mark say that Yeshua healed the 2 blind men after Jericho. On his way out of Jericho. Whereas Luke says he was on the way to Jericho. The truth is that there is actually no contradiction here. And you might go, what? How can that be? Well, the reason why is found in the footnotes of this event in the chronological gospel. So let's read what is going on here. So, we're reading here we go. It's event number 157, page 189. And we won't read the scriptures themselves, but here's the explanation. 3 gospel records report this same event, the healing of 2 blind men. In each record, one of the blind men is quoted verbatim, and he is the focus of Mark and Luke's account. Matthew and Mark state that the healing of the blind men occurred after Yeshua left Jericho for Jerusalem, whereas the King James version of Luke's gospel said that the healing of the blind men occurred as Yeshua was approaching Jericho. Well, that's complete opposite. How can that be? Were 2 sets of blind men speaking the same words, healed on 2 separate days? Like, is this 2 different incidents? People have argued that sometimes too. Or is there a more reasonable answer to this apparent contradiction? Several ancient Greek manuscripts of Luke's gospel state that Yeshua was approaching Jerusalem, not Jericho, when this healing took place, since he left Jericho after spending time with Zacchaeus and then healed the 2 blind men on the road to Jerusalem. So we're on this road between Jerusalem and Jericho, and really they're talking about the same thing. It was just translated incorrectly.
Sure. Yep, and that happens. I mean, that's one of the things so great about the chronological Gospels is the context that Michael brings to really clear up those things that you don't get just from reading the text by itself.
Right. Yeah, you'd never get that from reading a regular Bible.
Right.
You'd still be in confusion, searching the internet for the answer, and yeah, that's the great thing about that, is that Michael has done the research. He's gone through all the manuscripts. I mean, you're like, well, what manuscript do I start on? My goodness, there's thousands out there.
Oh, I get those emails all the time.
Yeah.
What was that manuscript? They're asking, where do I find this and find that? I said, just get the chronological Gospels. Read the chronological Gospels. It's all in there.
The man spent 40 years on it.
Yeah,
You don't
it's
need
right
to be doing
there.
the same. Yeah, exactly. So it's the little things that make all the difference between convincing someone that the Bible is true when they already have preconceived notions about it being false. It just goes to show that we need to be open to accepting that we don't know it all. I mean, that there are answers out there that we just haven't heard about yet. I mean,
well, and what you were talking about in the beginning, that's just having that humble spirit that sometimes we're not right, and we have to be okay with that. And the minute we take on this self-righteous attitude is when we kind of put our foot in our mouth, so to speak.
That's right.
So
yeah, we need to just be humble and admit that we don't know it all.
Exactly.
Yeah, so this show, Shabbat Night Live, and all of Michael Rood's teaching exist for the sole purpose of getting the attention of those who are still searching for the truth, or coming to that humility that they don't know all the truth.
Exactly.
And don't know where to look. I remember the first time I saw a Michael Rood program. And I was in a Pentecostal church at the time, and someone sent me a DVD in the mail anonymously. It just arrived. I couldn't tell where it came from. And it started it all for me. I mean, I started digging into what Michael said about the Bible, and also, what Brad Scott had to say, and Eddie Chumney had to say, and others in the Messianic world. And when their stories all pointed to the same truth that I'm still talking about to you right now, a decade later.
A double witness.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't deny it any longer because, someone was willing to give, because someone was willing to give of their tithe to a ministry that showed me the truth. My life changed forever. They gave the money so that DVD could be given to them, and then they gave it to me. Today, even though we all work here at A Rood Awakening, I still give back to the ministry because I know that we're promoting the truth once delivered to the saints. The truth that there's more to the Messiah than what we're learning in church. It changed my life. I'm assuming it changed your life too as you watch this program. And now it's your turn to help change someone else's life. We'll do the legwork. Don't worry about that. All we need is for you to support what we're doing. That makes you part of the team. Just as much as myself and Matthew are here, you're here with us. And please don't think that you can't make a difference because you can only give a few dollars. Yehovah can do wonders with any amount. In a moment, you'll see the contact information you need to make that donation on your screen. And for that, we thank you. Thank you for your support, and now we are going to support you with some questions from cyberspace of a health nature. All right. Our first question, Matthew.
Okay.
What is it?
All right. Ben says, I suffer with asthma and allergies, dust, pollen, etc. What are the best ways to minimize reactions without being shut in? We are adopting a more raw food diet, 30 to 40% now. And are there any particular foods that would support lung function?
Okay, well, when you're talking about allergies specifically, it's more about what you're going to take away from your diet rather than what you're adding to it.
Sure.
Rather than adding an herb here or doing this there, or maybe we're going to try a little more raw food. No, you want to go more extreme than that. If you want to get rid of your allergies, what you need to be doing is like a 75% raw diet. That's completely possible. People do 90 and even 100% raw diets. It's not that hard to do. First thing you want to do is get like a barley grass juice. I used to work at Halley Acres, so I know a lot of their products. I know that there's one called Barley Max. Works really well. It's a live food green juice. And so it supports your immune system. It gives that, because it's alive, it's supporting your life. Life supports life. It's a biblical concept, and that's why it works. And that's the same thing with raw foods. They have all the enzymes in them that your body needs to heal itself. That's what your body is doing. When you give it raw food, you're healing itself. I mean, your family does this too, so you know this.
Well, I know raw honey is another good thing.
Exactly, yes.
People that have asthma or different type of pollen allergies, that if you find local raw honey from your area, that'll actually help too as well.
Right, exactly. You want it, yeah, that's a good point as well. So it's not about adding to your diet, it's about taking away. That's what we want. And dairy, but dairy especially you want to take away, because dairy creates mucus. Mucus, that's the trigger point for allergies. And it also feeds cancer, as a matter of fact. Too much mucus will feed cancer, so that's not good for anybody's situation. But that is one way to increase your lung function and just get your lungs working better, is to do a raw food diet.
Okay.
Yeah, and taking away the animal source products, starting with dairy.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Amanda wants to know the effects of GMO and non-organic foods.
Okay. Well, just like the previous question, GMO foods can actually increase allergies. And here's why. It's because when you mess with GM, as genetically modified, so you're messing with the genes. When you mess with the genes, you're going to change the proteins. Now, you may change the proteins into something your body doesn't recognize.
Right.
So, that's where allergies come from, is an allergy to a certain protein. So GMO foods will increase allergies because you are eating proteins that your body doesn't recognize, and therefore triggering an allergic response. So that's one thing that GMO foods can do. Also, non-organic foods, the pesticides are going to cause all kinds of havoc. At the very least, they're going to mess with your gut flora. They're going to change the balance there, so you're not going to have the immune system that you had, because 75-80% of your immune system resides in your gut, so you want to keep that healthy.
Right.
There's a big correlation between what's in your gut and what's in your brain as well. There's something called the enteric nervous system that shares, it's a separate nervous system between your brain and your gut that doesn't affect any of the rest of the body. So what you eat then affects your brain. It'll give you headaches and brain fog and all kinds of neurological disorders can result when you mess with your gut flora.
Yeah, some people have said the gut's the second brain.
It is, yeah, and that's quite literal when you think about it in terms of being connected by the enteric nervous system. So that's some things that can happen with GMO foods. So try to avoid them. Look for organic whenever you can. Here's a trick I always use. Is if you're juicing, you don't have to use organic vegetables necessarily. Most people say, "Oh, really?" I say, "Yeah," because the reason why is that the pesticides and the herbicides that they put on these vegetables are designed to stay on the plant and not get washed away by the rain. So that means they're what's called hydrophobic.
Okay.
And that means that when you're juicing, it's going to stick to the pulp that comes out the one side of the machine, but your juice is going to be practically free of the
Well,
pesticides.
that's good news for people that have big families like me.
Exactly.
We can actually afford to juice if we don't
Yeah, now
buy
what you
all
should
organic.
do is try and buy things that are cheap, that are organic. Like organic bananas are cheap.
Right.
We buy lots of organic bananas. Organic carrots are also cheap. So make the carrot, as far
Kind
as
of the
juicing.
base,
Yeah, as far as your base when you're juicing, always make it at least 50%. People say, "Well, I've got diabetes. What about the sugar in the juice?" Okay, well then bring it down to maybe a third and fill the rest up with greens if you have diabetes, that kind of thing. Right. But don't be afraid of the sugar naturally occurring in a carrot. I mean, if you saw a chart of your blood sugar spiking, when you eat a piece of bread, it's kind of like this over time. The spike versus time, it'd be like this. If you see carrot juice, it kind of goes like this. So it's a longer time. The sugar is absorbed at a much slower rate.
It's not as much of a shock.
It's not as much as it won't cause the spike, exactly. Okay, what's next?
All right. Promise says chronic sinus infections and upper respiratory infections. I don't like to take allergy meds. Are there any natural alternatives?
Yes. Again, it's one of the situations we kind of just talked about with the other fellow. Was it Ben who had the allergies?
Yes.
Yeah, it's same kind of thing. Take away dairy. Take away any kind of inflammatory foods. Get into the foods that are naturally alkaline. All your fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, preferably raw. That's the foods that will heal your body. Especially get rid of dairy. I mean, you know what? A lot of people are allergic to dairy, And everybody kind of is allergic to dairy even if they don't think they are, because the enzyme that we have to break down even mother's milk as a baby disappears at 2 years old.
Yeah.
We are not, I mean, how often do you see a colt going to the mother horse when it's after, 2 years old trying to get a drink?
Yeah, the colt has a baby, and the older brother comes
Yeah,
over
it's
and
like,
let me in on that.
it doesn't make any sense after we're weaned, right?
Right.
And we're human beings. We're part of the animal kingdom. That's the way, I mean, Yahweh created us all practically at the same time. We need to follow that example. Once we're weaned, there's no reason to go back to the dairy, especially from a different species that has a much faster growth rate than we do. I mean, you see how fast a calf grows to be a full grown in just 1 year.
Right.
Well, that messes with our system in the first place. Secondly, the fat molecule in dairy is 5 times the size of the human fat molecule. That's why our bodies can't handle it. It can get into the cell necessarily, but getting back out, it's going to be hard, because the cell is like every one of our cells is kind of like a sieve, like a strainer.
Right.
So if things are small, they'll get in and get out efficiently. And your body will work as it's supposed to.
Well, I remember when I was a kid, I drank tons of milk,
Yeah, me
and
too.
it didn't really affect me. In fact, I think it helped in a lot of ways. But as you get older, I noticed that transition of it was maybe doing more harm than it was good. So that makes sense.
Yeah, nature telling you to try other foods.
Wean off.
Yeah. What else have we have?
All right, let's see here. Chris says, is there something natural to help end type 2 diabetes?
Yes. Chris, I've got good news for you. You can end type 2 diabetes in 30 days. And I'll prove it with something you can watch online. It doesn't come from me. It doesn't come from any other company associated with this ministry. It's just a video from the internet. You can watch it on YouTube for free. It's called Raw for 30 Days. You can go to you can go on YouTube and find it, or you can go to the website called Raw for 30 Days. What they did was they took a dozen or so people with diabetes. They put them in this special medical facility out in the middle of the desert in Nevada or someplace near there. And all they did was feed them raw fruits and veggies, a completely raw diet for 30 days. Every single person who went through the full 30 days and didn't chicken out halfway through got well. And the big deal was the raw vegetable juices, because when you juice vegetables, you get all of the natural enzymes and nutrition that we were talking about earlier concentrated into like a little 8-ounce. You can get a whole pound of carrots. All the nutrition in a full pound of carrots can be in a little 8-ounce.
That's a lot better than
glass of
sitting
juice.
there eating.
Well, yeah, and your
a whole
body
bunch of
can't
carrots.
assimilate all that fiber anyway.
Right.
So what you're doing is taking all the nutrients, concentrating them, and if you do that like every hour, you make enough for a couple of days at one time, and if you drink 8 ounces every hour, for 30 days, that's what these people did in addition to a full raw diet. Every one of them walked out of that facility diabetes free. No diabetes. They had there's a doctor there named Gabriel Cousins. He was there to test them to make sure that that everything was good, as they were transitioning through it. So I encourage you, Chris, if you're on meds and that kind of thing, don't do it by yourself. Go to your doctor, tell him what you want to do, and say, hey, I want to get off my meds. I don't want diabetes anymore, type 2 diabetes. Will you help me get off of it? Here's what I'm going to do. Please monitor me. Now, you are your own person. You can ask your doctor to go along with this. If he says, no, I'm not doing that for you, your doctor doesn't rule your life. Go find a different doctor who's going to help you get off the meds. Well, that's all the questions time we have for today. And thank you for joining us for the Q&A. Now, great questions. Absolutely. Keep sending them in. We'll do more in a future episode of Shabbat Night Live, and in just a minute we'll be joining Michael in the tent of Abraham for the Kiddush and go right into tonight's half-hour teaching with Michael Rood. So don't go anywhere until you watch this.
The Feast of Passover recalls Yeshua's ultimate love for us and the Great Commission to spread his message across the globe. This month, when you support that message through the ministry of a Rood Awakening International, Michael Rood will send you The Symbols of Sacrifice. With your gift of $75 or more, you'll receive a breathtaking crown of thorns. You will also receive Behold the Lamb, a simplified Passover Haggadah, plus a 10 Commandments keychain as a reminder to be a living sacrifice by following the commandments of Yehovah. Or, with your gift of $160 or more, you'll receive all of these gifts, plus a beautifully detailed model of the empty tomb, the eternal symbol sacrifice and triumph. Call today or visit our website to receive the Symbols of Sacrifice. Hurry, offer ends March 31st. Come and experience a Rood Awakening International's awe-inspiring presentation, Passover 2015, Worthy is the Lamb. April 3rd through the 5th at the Embassy Suites in Concord, North Carolina. Enjoy Passover teachings, learn to make and bake your own unleavened bread, and witness an unforgettable retelling of the Messiah's final hours. Register now for Passover 2015. Hurry, seating is limited.
The composite of the gospel records tell us that before the Passover lamb was sacrificed the following morning, that Yeshua had his last supper with his disciples, in which he took bread, arton, leavened bread, and he took wine, and he said, "This represents my body, which will be broken for you. This cup represents my shed blood, which will pay for the iniquity." It is this very thing that the Melchizedek shared with Abraham. As Yeshua said, Abraham saw my day and rejoiced. And when the Melchizedek brought forth bread and wine, he shared with them about the coming of the Messiah, about his broken body, about his shed blood. And Abraham gave a tenth of everything that he owned and laid it at the feet of the Melchizedek. He saw Yeshua's day and he rejoiced. And so now, every time we do this, every Sabbath, every meal in which there's bread and wine, in which we take this and we bless the Most High. Baruch atah Yehovah Eloheinu melech ha'olam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Blessed are you, Yehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe, who brings forth bread from the earth. Yeshua said, "This is my body, which is broken for you." As often as you do it in remembrance of me. And then Yeshua took the cup, and he said, "Blessed are you, Yehovah, our Elohim, King of the universe, who brings forth the fruit of the vine," the creator of the fruit of the vine. And every time we do this, we do remember his death and what he did for us until he comes. One day, at the marriage supper of the Lamb, Yeshua will lift his cup and say, "I have not had a drop of this, as I promised at the Last Supper. I've been waiting for you. Now, l'chaim, to life everlasting." Even though the blessing was acquired because of a conspiracy between Yitzhak's wife, Rivka, and Yaakov, the younger child, once that blessing was given, there was no taking it back. And there was nothing that could be done about it. And in chapter 28, we read that Yitzhak called Yaakov and blessed him. You know, there's nothing he can do. The blessing has been given. He also earned the birthright of the firstborn because of the pottage that was sold, the red lentil stew that was literally sold to Esau, and he willingly gave up his birthright because of it. So he blessed him and he charged him. He said, "Do not take a wife of the daughters of the Canaanites. Do not do it. Arise, go to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take a wife from thence of the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother." So he said, go find one of your cousins, okay? Nowadays, you know, that's kind of what you'd expect in West Virginia. Go to a family reunion to look for girls. But then, no, he's going back to his family. He's going back to find one of his cousins, because now we have a godly culture, a godly person, and we remember that it was Bethuel and Laban that said, when they heard the story, they recognized and said that Yehovah, certainly this is the hand of Yehovah. We cannot deny it, and so take my daughter, take my sister, and have her to be the wife. And so it says that he sent away Yaakov, and he went to Padan Aram unto Laban, the son of Bethuel, the Syrian. Now this is important that we understand this, where it talks about him being a Syrian, because this is what is done. If
if I can find my note here. When the first fruit is presented during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, we are to present the first fruits of the barley harvest. That's why it tells us in Exodus that we guard the month of the Aviv. Because when the barley is Aviv, that's when we came out of the land of Egypt. And every year we will keep the Passover in the month of the Aviv. And when Passover, a lamb is sacrificed, and that evening after sunset, which is now the 15th of the month of the Aviv, now we eat the lamb with unleavened bread and bitter herbs, and we have unleavened bread for the entire week. After the weekly Sabbath, during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, that is when we harvest the first fruits of the barley and present it in the temple. And when we come into the temple to present this, it tells us in Deuteronomy 26:1, this is what we do. And actually, when we were discovering many of these things, this is what Joshua Cohen and I did actually at the southern steps of the Temple Mount, harvested the barley and went through this rehearsal there at the Temple Mount, just so that we could get into the whole thing to understand and to taste what it would have been like in the days of the temple. And it shall be, in verse 1, when thou art come into the land which Jehovah your God gives you for an inheritance to possess it, you take of the first fruit of the earth, and you bring it before Jehovah your Elohim, and you put it in a basket, and go to the place where Jehovah shall choose to place his name there. And you shall go to the priest that shall be in those days, and say unto them, I profess this day the Jehovah thy Elohim, that I am come unto this country which Jehovah sware unto our fathers to give us. And the priest shall take the basket out of your hand, set it down before the altar of Jehovah, and you shall speak unto him and say before Jehovah, a Syrian ready to perish was my father. And he went down into Egypt and sojourned there with a few, and there became a nation, great, mighty and populous. And the Egyptians evil entreated us, afflicted us, and laid upon us hard bondage. And when we cried unto the Jehovah, the Elohim of our fathers, Jehovah heard our voice, looked on our affliction, our labor and oppression. And Jehovah brought us forth out of Egypt with a mighty hand, with an outstretched arm, with great terribleness, with signs and wonders. And he's brought us to this place, has given us this land, a land that flows with milk and honey. And now, behold, I have brought the first fruits of the land which thou, O Jehovah, hast given me. And then you set it before Jehovah, thy Elohim. See, this is why we do the first fruits of the barley. The barley must be Aviv because of this rehearsal that was to be done in the temple. And we see that the day of first fruits and this offering was actually fulfilled in its rehearsal by Yeshua, who, when he arose, those whose graves were opened, when he cried with a loud voice, it is finished, the earthquake, the rocks rent, and the graves were opened. When he arose, 3 days and 3 nights later, they arose, appeared to many in the streets, and then Yeshua then took them to the Father's throne and presented them as the first fruits from the earth. See, these are why these rehearsals are so absolutely important, because they're prophetic shadow pictures of the good things to come that the Messiah would fulfill. And this is why we're told to guard, protect the month of the Aviv. And yet, of course, the modern Jewish calendar pays no attention to the month of the Aviv. They add 7 8 bets every 19 years. It's just a mathematical logarithm, not based upon the Creator's reckoning of time. Yeshua said, don't follow the takanot of the Pharisees. And when they changed the calendar, they made takanot by their own admission. Yeshua said, don't follow the Pharisees' calendar. But yet, we want to do it because we want life to be easy. We really don't want to depend upon the Almighty. We don't want to guard the month of the Aviv. We don't want to see these prophetic shadow pictures. We just want to play church with a little Jewish keeper or something a little bit different. Sing songs in a minor key. No, that's not what it is to be messianic. It's to follow the Messiah. When he says, don't do something, we don't do it. And when he says do something, we do it. When he says don't take a daughter of the Canaanites, do not intermix with these pagan sun god worshipers, these sex perverts who have been cursed. Stay away from them. And so he is on his way. And on his way to Padamaran, oh boy, yeah. And again, in verse 6, it's talk about do not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. And again, Esau, seeing that the daughters of Canaan pleased not Isaac his father. And so we see over and over and over this whole thing with Canaan, the Canaanites, which takes us back to Genesis 9 where we began the whole story. It is one story. We have to read it all together. That's why we stick to it and boil these things down to where we understand what the Almighty is communicating to us, because he's communicating to us now. We are living among the heathens, among the pagans, but he says, come out and be separate. Come out from these people and be separate, and touch not the unclean thing. And on the way, Yaakov dreamed a dream, and the ladder reached up into heaven, and the Almighty again came, and he spoke to him. And he again reiterated that this land would be theirs. And he has to obey the Almighty and not take a wife of the Canaanites, because if he does, he is in disobedience and it will be terminated. As we were told at Mount Sinai, if you will keep my commandments, you will be a kingdom of priests. It's dependent upon our obedience to the Almighty. Grace does not cover disobedience. Mercy may cover it for a while, because mercy is withheld merited judgment. You disobey, you will be judged. Grace is the divine empowerment to live a holy, a righteous, and a godly life in the middle of a sick, twisted, perverse, perverted, pagan world. That is what grace is. Anyone who uses the word grace as a license to violate the Torah, slap them. Slap them right upside the head as hard as you can. Try to wake them up, because they're on their way directly to hell. They will not pass go. They will not collect $200. And I don't care what kind of verses you want to isolate to try to say, oh, you can do whatever you want. Grace covers it all. No, it doesn't cover it all. Mercy covers you until that day when the Almighty has Yeshua then judge us according to that which is written in the books. So wake up and obey. Now, Yaakov rose up in the morning in verse 18, took the stone that he put for a pillow, he set it up for a pillar as a memorial pillar, an altar. There's an altar of sacrifice, and there's also an altar of memorial, called, sometimes referred to as a pillar in the King James English. It talks about in the end days that there will be a pillar in the midst and at the border of the land of Egypt for a testimony. This is an altar or a pillar, an altar of remembrance. And this is what we see. Every time the Almighty is speaking to one of these patriarchs, they set up an altar to remember that place. And the children of Israel are told, do not remove these altars. Do not take down these pillars. Do not remove the ancient landmarks when you come into the land. You have no idea what they're there for. He knows what they're there for. And they still are there to this day. And so he set it up in the place which was called Bethel, the house of Elohim, which was before by the pagans called Luz, as in loser. And now chapter 29. Then Yaakov went on his journey and came to the people of the east, and he found himself in Haran. In verse 5, he said, as he met these people who are out there waiting for the stone to be removed over this well so that they can water their sheep, he said, do you know Laban, the son of Nahor? And they said, well, we know him well. And he said, is he well? And they said, he is well, as they spoke by the well. And then he said, no, look, there's Rachel. Rachel, his daughter, is coming with his sheep right now. Isn't this a coincidence? And when he saw Rachel, He absolutely flipped out. The man is 75 years old. This girl is a knockout, an absolute knockout, just like the rest of the women in the family. And he is just head over heels for her. He then goes to Laban and says, I'm in love with your daughter. I will work for you for 7 years and give her to me as my wife. And so he worked for 7 years, and at the end of it, they had this is a big wedding ceremony. Now, if he would have done it the way his father did it, and taken her into the tent, this following thing would not have ensued. But no doubt that night that Laban made sure that he was just a little bit 3 sheets to the wind, having a little bit too much celebration, and he got it all prepared. And so when he went into the tent to then meet with his new wife, when he woke up in the morning, it was Leah. Leah, the older daughter, who says she had weak eyes. We don't know exactly what it means, but she could have had these big horn frame black glasses with Coke bottles on the bottom of them. Not a real attractive young lady, but her younger sister was an absolute knockout. He woke up in the morning, she puts her glasses on, and joking here a little bit. This is not the woman he had the marriage ceremony with the night before. It's Leah. And so he goes to Laban, you've tricked me. You've tricked me. And he said, well, we can't allow the younger to get married before the older. That's the way we do it here. And so he says, fulfill her week, and then we'll give you Rivka as well. And so this is what happened. After the week, then they gave Rivka to him, and she became his wife, and then he had to work for 7 more years after that. Well, at the end of this period of time, we see that between Rachel and Leah, and their 2 handmaids, which is Bilhah and Zilpah, that they have, in the end, they have 12 sons. And but while they're still living in Padamaran, they have 11 of these sons. And during this period of time, it says that Laban changed the remuneration of Yaakov, had done it 10 times. And finally, his wives said, he has devoured all of our money. He has sold us out. He's devoured all of our money, and we have got absolutely nothing. He has run you over the coals over and over. Get us out of here. And so Yaakov takes his wives, all the possessions that he has, and escapes while his father-in-law is out shearing the sheep. He is gone. He's left for a whole week, and then he finds out, and so he chases them down. Laban chases him down, and when he catches up with him, he said, why have you stolen my sons and daughters? He's speaking grandsons and granddaughters and his daughters. Why have you stolen them? And he explains why he stole them and why he had to get out of there. And he said, and furthermore, you've stolen my gods. Obviously, he had more than one god, and that's why Abraham got out of there, because, he had many gods. And so now, Yaakov said, no, we didn't steal them. And if anyone did, may he be cursed with death. Well, he didn't know that Rivka, his beloved wife, had stolen these gods. And so she put him in a case. She went in and sat down on top of that case and said, excuse me, Father, I can't get up right now. I'm in the way of all women. And so he moved on. But it was Yaakov that pronounced the curse over his wife. And when she then entered into the land on their way to Ephrat, which is also called Beit Lechem, the house of bread. But on the way to Ephrat, there she bore her last child, Benjamin, and died. And he set up a pillar there, which you can still, right from the top of the hill, you can still look down upon that. And so now, backing up for a short time, it was there that Laban and Yaakov made a covenant together. And he said, okay, we're going to set up this stone. And Yaakov said to all of his brethren, okay, gather stones. They piled up this huge heap of stones. And this huge heap of stones is right there at Gilead. And it's right on the other side of the Jordan River, right on the other side of the Kinneret, or the Sea of the Galilee region, which it became known in later generations. They put up this huge pile of stones, and this is where they made an agreement, a covenant. And Laban said in verse 48 of chapter 31, this heap is a witness between me and you this day. And he said, Yehovah, watch between me and thee when we are absent one from another. Now, this one verse has been used in the Christian world as a token between a man and a woman who have to be separated for a while. But this is not what it was originally. They put up this heap of stones and said, neither one of us will cross this line with the intent to do bodily harm, to kill each other. Okay? We're making a truce here. And Yehovah watch over us. And if either one of us goes over this line with the intent of hurting the other, the Almighty is going to step in. And so now we have Israel, Yaakov, who is going to be named Israel by not only the angel, but then the Almighty comes to him and speaks to him and changes his name from Yaakov to Israel, to a prince. And there is going to be this borderline that the Almighty watches over. Israel is here, the Syrians are over here, and that is why in 1973, being outnumbered exponentially 40-1, the Syrian tanks were rolling to invade Israel, to cross that line, and then with just a handful of tanks that were still operational, the Syrians, then the entire armored division, turned around and went back to Damascus. And then when they were debriefed on this, after the war was over, they said, why did you turn around? Because they would have just gone right through Israel. There was nothing stopping them. They would, within hours, would have been in Tel Aviv. They would have conquered the land of Israel. And the commander said, we saw an angel put up his hand and say, stop, stop. And when we saw the hand of that angel, we stopped. And we turned around and we retreated and we went back to Damascus. This is why this is still vital and viable today. The Almighty is watching over that marker, that land marker. If the Syrians go over and try to go past that marker, the Almighty will step in. Damascus will be nothing but a smoldering, ruinous heap. The people that are going to be taking over after the UN and the U.S. continue to play their games is going to bring Damascus to its ruin, because the Almighty is the one who stands. And whether it's done by thermonuclear blast, which levels a city and turns it into sandy, glassy sand, or the Almighty just comes and rains fire and brimstone down on it, we don't know what's going to happen. But the Almighty is watching over that heap as a witness. This heap, verse 52, is a witness. This pillar is a witness. I will not pass over this heap to thee. You shall not pass over this heap and this pillar unto me for harm. The God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, the God of their fathers, judge between us. And Yaakov sware by the fear of his father Yitzhak. And so Yaakov continued on his way and sent messengers unto Esau. And these messengers. They had all of these 200 she-goats, 20 he-goats, 100 ewes, 20 rams, 30 milch camels in their coats, 40 kine or cattle, and 10 bulls, 20 she-asses. And he sent these people ahead to Esau and sent his servants in, and when you come across Esau, as he's coming out with 400 armed men against this family, with all these children, 400 men coming out, and when they say, whose are these? Who do they belong to? These belong to Esau. They are a gift from his brother. And so he travels on, and then after a few hours, another load of livestock goes by. Whose are they? Who do they belong to? They're your brothers, and it's a gift to you. And finally, at the end, it's Yaakov, who has divided his family and put his most beloved wife and youngest son, Joseph, at the very end, and divided them into two, because if one of them gets killed, the others can escape. And they've got signals worked out in case they attack one, then the rest take off and get out of here. Well, that night, the Almighty met and wrestled. The angel wrestled with Yaakov and then renamed him Israel at that point. And so now we have Esau and Yaakov coming together. Esau hugging his brother Yaakov and reuniting their friendship. And now we are going to see what transpires in this land filled with Canaanite perversion as Yaakov and his family establish themselves in the very land where they're told to go back and remain there. I would like to now leave you with this blessing. Yivarechecha Yehovah v'yishmerecha. Ya'ir Yehovah panav elecha v'yichunecha. Yisa Yehovah panav elecha v'yisem lecha shalom b'shem Yeshua HaMashiach Sar Shalom. Bless you. Yehovah bless you, keep you, make his face to shine upon you, be gracious unto you. In the name of Yeshua. Amen. Shabbat Shalom. Shavua Tov. Have a good week. Lahitro. We'll see you later. And Laila Tov.